The sun, the moon, the planets and stars have always fired our imaginations and fueled our mythologies. And studying the heavens, astronomy, is surely the oldest scientific discipline there is.
What's really unexpected, I guess, is that astronomy has repaid our interest in it over the centuries. Time after time, it's been the place where new ideas have emerged, and it's often led the rest of the sciences.
I'm a professor of physics at the University of Surrey, and the ideas and theories of the great European scientists like Galileo, Newton and Einstein lie at the heart of my work. But there's another side to me. I'm half Iraqi, and I'm keen to investigate stories I'd heard as a schoolboy in Baghdad of great astronomers from the medieval Islamic world whose work shapes the discoveries of these later Western scientists. So I'm going on a journey through Syria and Egypt to the remote mountains in northern Iran to discover how the work of these Islamic astronomers had dramatic and far-reaching consequences. There, I'll discover how they were the first to attack seemingly unshakable Greek ideas about how the heavenly bodies move around the earth.
It was Islam that paved the way for one of the greatest upheavals in the history of science.
This is the University of Padua in northern Italy. I'm here to see incontrovertible evidence that one of the greatest breakthroughs in European science links back to the earlier work by Islamic scholars.
Because it was a news one that at that time...
Astronomer Dr. Luisa Pigiotti and I are climbing up to the 18th century observatory. At the top, she promises to show me one of the most important books in scientific history.
So, what do we have here?
Okay, this is the second edition of Revolutionibus.
Copernicus.
Yes.
This is De Revolutionibus Orbium Celestium, which was published in 1543 by the Polish astronomer Nicholas Copernicus.
I'll be careful.
Is it the second edition?
The significance of this book is enormous. In it, Copernicus argues for the first time since Greek antiquity that all the planets, including the Earth, go around the sun. For thousands of years, everyone had believed a very different view, that the Earth is static and everything, including the stars, sun and planets, move around it.
And here there are all his system, okay?
Oh, there we go.
And
Sol,
the system.
the sun in the
It's
middle.
a famous drawing,
Yes.
this one.
Oh, yes, and there's Terra.
With the
There's
moon.
the, with the moon
With
going
the moon,
around it.
okay, yes.
This is an astonishing book, and many historians credit it with starting the European scientific revolution.
There are the principle.
The first crucial step in a journey that led to modern physics.
This is another eruption of the Earth.
Well, I agree, but it does seem a bit odd that one doesn't hear much about where Copernicus got his ideas and information. The impression is that they came out of nowhere.
The beginning?
And the beginning is all in Arabic.
It certainly is a real revelation to me that he explicitly mentions a 9th century Muslim for providing him with a great deal of observational data, an astronomer who lived in Damascus called al-Battani. Like all the great scientists of the Islamic Empire, al-Battani lived in a culture without portraiture. All we have are later impressions of what he might have looked like.
And here he mentioned Hipparchus Calippo, Ptolemy, and so on, and he started to mention what he called Macometus Aratensis, and means al-Battani.
Okay. And then this second book here.
And the second book is, we can look at the beginning in Latin.
I see, we can open it.
Copernicus, in fact, made extensive use of al-Battani's observations of the positions of planets, the sun, the moon, and stars. He worked with Latin translations, similar to this one, of the Syrian astronomers' data.
Kitab al-Zij al-Sabi. So this is Battani's Zij, his
Yes.
book of star charts. So it has the Arabic.
Yes, all the Arabic
The Arabic on one
treatise,
side, yes.
and then the Latin version.
That's convenient.
But he had the data, the observational data by al-Battani.
And Copernicus's book is full of clues that hint at other past sources. And though al-Battani is the only Islamic astronomer Copernicus actually names, recent detective work has uncovered clues that Copernicus based many of his ideas on the work of other Islamic scholars. The clearest example is Copernicus's use of a mathematical idea devised by the 13th century Islamic astronomer al-Tusi, called the Tusi couple. Back in England, I compared a copy of al-Tusi's Tadhkira fi ilm al-Haytham with another edition of Copernicus's Revolutionibus.
In it, there's a diagram of the Tusi couple, and there's an almost identical diagram in Copernicus's book, even down to the letters that mark the points on the circles. So in al-Tusi, there's the Arabic alif, which is A, there's the ba, which is B, the Jim over here is the G, and the Dal at the center, D. It's a remarkable similarity. Now, this might just be coincidence, but it's pretty compelling evidence. In fact, I truly believe that Copernicus must have been aware of al-Tusi's work and other Islamic astronomers.
Further detective work also shows that Copernicus used mathematical ideas for planetary motion that are remarkably similar to ones developed by another Islamic astronomer, a 14th century Syrian called Ibn Shatir. For some historians, this cannot be coincidence.
Copernicus, to me, I have no proof. I don't have a smoking gun. But to me, it looked like, and again, by analyzing his own works, it looks like he was working from diagrams. Somebody gave him a geometric diagram of what was done by Ibn Shatir to solve the problem of the moon, for example, to solve the problem of the upper planets, to solve the problem of the movement of Mercury. He had diagrams, and he was genius enough to be able to figure out from the diagrams what was the underlying theory behind those diagrams.
So, far from emerging from nowhere, it seems Copernicus's work will be better described as the culmination of the preceding 500 years of Islamic astronomy. I wanted to investigate this story, find out more about those astronomers and their ideas. But before that, I wanted to investigate an even deeper question. What actually motivated medieval Islamic scholars' interest in astronomy? This is the Umayyad Mosque in the heart of the Syrian capital, Damascus, and is one of the oldest in the world. And I'm here on a kind of treasure hunt.
Well, it says in the book that there is a sundial on the top of the Arus minaret, the bride minaret over there. So we'll see whether it is there or not. So
this is Dr. Reem Turkmani, an astrophysicist and medieval astronomy expert from Imperial College London. And we're looking for one of the most accurate sundials made in the medieval world. And equally exciting for me is the fact that it was made by one of the Islamic astronomers who had so heavily influenced Copernicus, Ibn Shatir.
Let's see.
Officials in the mosque claim that the sundial was removed in the 19th century, but Ream's research suggests that an exact replica might still exist, high in one of the minarets, hidden from view. It's not quite the lost Ark of the Covenant, but the idea of discovering a 150-year-old artifact is still quite something.
Would you recognise anything if you had a look?
I need to look at the other window, sorry. No.
No, it is further up.
Yeah.
Marking time accurately is essential to Islam. The Quran requires the faithful to pray 5 times a day at 5 very precise times. At the exact moment of dawn, when the sun is overhead, in the afternoon, at sunset, and then again at the moment of nightfall. So for early Islam, an accurate sundial was an extremely important fixture in many mosques.
That's it, I found it. I found it.
yet?
So here it is,
right.
That's it, look. Just as described in the book.
It's hidden by the pillar.
Yeah, no wonder they didn't know that it exists here. It's
got in our
all
mosque.
covered with the pigeons filth.
Pigeon crap.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, great, thank you.
try that.
So, let's see.
Okay.
So, now, this consists of 3 sundials. The main big one, and there's the northern one and the southern one. There is a line here for Salat al-Dhuhr, the midday prayer, and there is one for the afternoon prayer.
Ibn Shatir had calculated the arrangement of these lines so that the sundial remains accurate all through the year, even though the length of the days change.
They will have
Yes.
the timekeeper. It's a very important job.
So he would sit here watching the shadow.
exactly.
And exactly the precise moment for prayer,
Yeah.
he'd signal to the muezzin to start
Yes.
the call for prayer.
Exactly.
Okay.
Ibn Shatir's sundial, accurate to within minutes, really showed me how Islam required its scholars to make meticulously accurate observations of heavenly bodies. And I began to understand why Copernicus was so impressed by the work of his Islamic predecessors. They really brought standards of accuracy and precision to astronomy that were unheard of before. They'd calculated the size of the Earth to within 1% and created trigonometric tables accurate to 3 decimal places. And when I met up with Reem Turkmani again on Mount Qasyun outside Damascus, I was to hear about the Islamic astronomer who personified accurate observation, the man whose astronomical tables and measurements Copernicus explicitly makes reference to, al-Battani. Born in 858 in southern Turkey, al-Battani made accurate astronomical measurement a personal obsession.
And the story goes is that al-Battani used to observe on this mountain here and in this observatory.
Over 40 years, from 877, both here and in the town of Raqqa, al-Battani's great project was to work out as accurately as possible the length of the year.
This is a copy of the original manuscript.
Okay.
So I'll show you the chapter at which he explained the length of the year. Okay? The chapter 27. So he first started here by citing the ancient values of the Egyptians and the Babylonians, right? And he gives the length of year.
Their estimate of the year was 365 days, 6 hours, and just over 10 minutes. To improve on this, al-Battani used his ingenuity and a device like this, an armillary sphere. He used it to measure how the length of shadows varied over the course of a year. With this information, he was able to work out the precise day on which it's both light and dark for exactly the same time, the so-called equinox. And he repeated his measurements over the course of 40 years. Now, here's the clever bit. He examined a Greek text that was written 700 years earlier and discovered the precise day on which its author had also measured the equinox. He now had two vital pieces of data: the number of days between the two observations and the number of years. He divided the first number by the second to arrive at an astonishing result. A year is 365 days, 5 hours, 46 minutes, and 24 seconds.
And he gets the new number, which was only 2 minutes of the modern observations.
2 minutes.
2 minutes
so
of only.
the length of a year to an accuracy of
Which
just 2 minutes.
Exactly, the one he calculated.
What's astonishing about the accuracy of al-Battani's measurements is that he had no telescope. He used an armillary arm, his naked eye, and devices like this, an astrolabe.
So you move the pointer and you move this disc with it to point towards the North Star. Then these small pointers here, they will give you the location of the rest of the stars and the planets. Yeah.
Despite this, among his many other observations is an incredibly accurate figure for the Earth's tilt of just under 24 degrees, about half a degree from the figure we now know it to be. And he didn't stop there.
He measured variations in the diameter of the sun to such accuracy that it led him to an astonishing conclusion. This distance, the furthest point the sun reaches from the Earth during the year, known as the apogee, actually changes from one year to another.
Also, his tables showing the position of the sun and the moon, which is what Copernicus refers to some 600 years later, set a new standard in precision and accuracy. So al-Battani and his fellow Islamic astronomers were clearly good observers. But so what, you might ask? Well, the answer is that their observations began to suggest to them that the prevailing Greek theory that described how everything in the heavens revolved around the Earth had some serious flaws. This Greek tradition, which had been unquestioned for over 700 years, was based primarily on the work of one of the greatest astronomers of the ancient world.
Claudius Ptolemaeus, or Ptolemy, was a Greek astronomer based in Alexandria in the 2nd century AD. He wrote one of the greatest texts in astronomy, the Almagest, which was basically a distillation of all Greek knowledge on the celestial world. Ptolemy believed that the sun, the moon, the planets, and the stars all sat on crystal spheres that rotated around the Earth. So the moon sits on the innermost sphere, followed by the sun and the planets, and finally a patchwork of stars on the outermost sphere. So we human beings sit at the very center of the universe, with the rest of the universe rotating around us.
But as Ptolemy himself realized, there's a problem with trying to describe the heavens as a place of mathematically idealized perfect spheres. And that is that the planets don't really play ball. As they move across the night sky, they change speed, appear to get bigger and smaller, and even go back on themselves. Ptolemy tried to explain this away by arguing that the planets sat on small spheres called epicycles, which rotated around a bigger sphere called a deferent. This explained why they might look as though they were changing size, and why they sometimes even change direction. Unfortunately, that still didn't fit all the facts. It didn't easily explain why the planets appear to speed up and slow down. So, rather desperately, Ptolemy fudged his model further by moving the Earth away from the centre of the deferent and having the deferent rotate around an arbitrary point in space, the equant. But now, the works of astronomers like al-Battani started to strain Ptolemy's ideas to breaking point. Their careful observations began to suggest that even with Ptolemy's unwieldy equants and deferents, the actual behaviour of the heavens didn't fit the data.
So what do you do if you were an astronomer living in Baghdad and you have all those results on your table? The very first requirement is to say, this Greek tradition is not as trustworthy as it is advertised to be. And now, of course, they begin to say, if the fundamental values of the astronomical tradition of the Greeks, which we could double check and we found them to be in error, what else is in error? They began to question now the more basic foundational astronomical, cosmological foundations of the Greek tradition.
And question they did. What's absolutely striking about the writings of Islamic scholars by the 9th century is the increasing use of the word shukuk, which in English means doubts.
They showed that it's sometimes necessary to doubt an idea that everyone around you believes unquestioningly. Islamic doubting of Greek astronomy began the slow process of undermining the notion that the Earth is at the centre of the universe. To doubt takes great courage and imagination. But if the great dialogue between Islamic and European astronomers shows anything, it's that doubt, or shukuk, is the engine that drives science forward.
One of the first great shukuk scientists was called Ibn al-Haytham. He was born in the Iraqi city of Basra in 965 AD and was among the first to argue passionately that scientific ideas are only valid if they're mathematically consistent and reflect reality. And when he applied his fierce, rigorous intelligence to Greek astronomy, he immediately spotted that there was a fundamental contradiction at its heart. On the one hand, Greek cosmology argued that everything in the heavens revolves around the Earth. On the other hand, Ptolemy, in his Almagest, argued that if you want to mathematically predict how the sun and planets move, you have to pretend that they go around an arbitrary point in space, the so-called equant. This is clearly a contradiction. The heavens can't both go around the Earth and not go around it at the same time. Ibn al-Haytham hated this nonsensical contradiction. In the early 11th century, he wrote a paper, al-Shukuk ala Ptolemyus, or Doubts on Ptolemy. In it, he writes with barely contained frustration, Ptolemy assumes an arrangement that cannot exist.
Ibn al-Haytham says that is a total absurdity. We cannot accept that. And furthermore, he says, it's not a slip of a tongue. Ptolemy knew that it was an absurdity, and he shows us where Ptolemy himself was embarrassed by having to introduce it. So he says there is a fundamental reasoning problem, meaning that the Greeks knew that Ptolemy knew that he was making a mistake, but he knew he couldn't do any better, and hence now the challenge is to do one notch better, and hence to be able to fix this. That, in my explanation, begins to be the program of research for all astronomers to come.
In order to achieve that project, you had to be convinced that it was possible to make high precision mathematical models of the way in which planets and stars move that would really capture how they are in the heavens.
Ibn al-Haytham, in effect, laid down the challenge for all astronomers who followed, which was to come up with an explanation for how the heavens move that is both mathematically consistent and agrees with what we observe. The final answer to this would come from faraway Europe with Copernicus and others. But the next and crucial breakthrough came somewhat closer.